Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Let me start with some macro thoughts. Overnight index swaps are pricing in a 90.1% probability that the Bank of England will raise rates later today. Take a look at this one-year chart of sterling. It's coming off the boil. This morning it was at 132.78. We're now at 132.43. Might spike on the interest rate decision, but I think it's a big sell at that point. Home Thoughts went back to one of my favorite songs, Northern Soul, M People. Heather Smalls is the name of the singer, and the song is called Fantasy Island. I like this daily Kerouac thought of the day. I want a blaze of light to flame in me forever, in a timeless dear love of everything. I said to Hannah, who is 11, which poem did you choose? She had to choose a poem last night, and I tried to show her some E. Cummings, which was short and pithy, but she wasn't interested. And she said, The Hollow Men by T.S. Eliot. And I responded and said, Mr. Kurtz, he dead. And for thine is the kingdom. It's a very complex poem which I never even understood until I was much older than her. But I insisted on reading it to her this morning, and let me read you a little bit myself. Here we go round the prickly pear, prickly pear, prickly pear. Here we go round the prickly pear, 5 o'clock in the morning. Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow, for thine is the kingdom. Between the conception and the creation, between the emotion and the response, falls the shadow. Life is very long. Between the desire and the spasm, between the potency and the existence, between the essence and the descent, falls the shadow, for thine is the kingdom. For thine is life is, for thine is the kingdom. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper. I like this bar, the SubSix bar at Niyama Private Islands in the Maldives. Looks like a nice place to hang out in. Have a read of this story by Eliot. Today's bewitched story is a true one experienced by someone I know. It terrifies me because of the implications. Grab your tea thread. Where this situation occurs is the closest shopping mall to my house. I'm going to be giving it a wide berth. Political reflections. We can nullify US sanctions, isolate it by eliminating the dollar, replacing it with national currencies in bi- and multilateral economic transactions, so told the supreme leader of Iran to Vladimir Putin, who visited him yesterday. This is the photograph that they subsequently posted. And I thought to myself, that kind of thinking did not end well for Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi. Aung San Suu Kyi has made her first visit to the conflict zone. That was done yesterday. But I remind you of what Bob Geldoff said. Aung San Suu Kyi took the greatest prize humans can give to one another, and then becomes one of the great ethnic cleansers on the planet. Sayfullo Saipov has been charged with terrorism, taken to the New York federal courthouse in a wheelchair, handcuffed and with his feet shackled on Wednesday, shortly after the charges were announced at a press conference. And this goes back to what I wrote about the brothers Tsarnaev and the long tail. There are more than 7 billion of us now in this 21st century of ours. The long tail in a population of 7 billion is not an insignificant absolute number. In statistics, a long tail of some distributions of numbers is the portion of the distribution having a large number of occurrences far from the head or central part of the distribution. Put it in a different way, there are surely many brothers Tsarnaev in this new 21st century of ours. And then I was talking about how these folks remind me of L'Étranger, Albert Camus. They consider themselves Byronic heroes, incapable of love, capable only of an impossible love. Suffers endlessly, he is solitary, languid, his condition exhausts him. If he wants to feel alive, it must be in the terrible exaltation of a brief and destructive action. Take a look at this Time magazine cover from Zebra Farm 2000. I don't know whether it's real or not, but we'll find out, no doubt. And as I said previously, any financial expert will tell you that President Trump's financial affairs are a smoking gun. And I said there is a prima facie case here and it's in plain sight. International markets, so much for October being volatile. The VIX just posted its lowest monthly average in its entire history. That's from the stalwart. US 2 10-year yield curve is at 74 basis points, the flattest in exactly 10 years. Jamie at Reuters. And here Holger's comparing the US federal funds rate with the 10-year yield. Let's move on to currency markets, where we could see some explosive price action after the Bank of England decision. But let's start with the euro, 116.40. Struggling really to make much headway here, expecting a visit down to 114.50. Dollar index, 94.53 when I checked last, well above that level I used to talk about at 93.50. Japanese yen, 114.03. Swiss franc, 0.9993. The pound, 132.43, the Australian dollar, 0.7704, India rupee, 64.555, South Korean won, 1113.95, that's recovered. The rial, 326.74, Egyptian pound, 17.66, South African rand is a sell at below 14 at 13.95.64. Dollar index, let me put up a year's chart. A lot of people thought we had a bottom, including myself, but now we've got Robert Mueller to consider, and I think he's blunted the bull move a little. Euro dollar, my target remains 114.50. For traders, you can short it here with a stop just above 116.70 maybe. In December 2008, European junk bonds yielded a record 25.97%. Today that yield stands at 0.8%, an all-time low. In the third quarter, Facebook said its revenue growth accelerated to 47% and the company pulled in an operating profit margin of 50%. According to this report and Bloomberg Gadfly, there are a couple of spots of worry though. One, the average number of people who used Facebook or Facebook Messenger at least once a day reached 1.37 billion in September. It's incredible. And while the figure is impressively massive, it was also the slowest year-on-year growth ever in daily users. The question is whether this was a blip or a sign that Facebook will have a tougher time drawing in more people. It's got to plateau, hasn't it, at some point? Let's move on to the commodity markets, from oil to ruthenium. Here's how commodities are bouncing back. Commodities are booming again. The Bloomberg Commodity Index is up more than 9% from its late June lows, outpacing the S&P 500 index's 6% advance over the same dates. Signs that the long-awaited rebalancing of the global crude market is at hand have pushed Brent futures to 2-year highs, but I think we've topped out, while WTI isn't too far behind. And it's not just oil. Synchronized global growth and China's crackdown on capacity in a bid to help clean up the environment have fostered gains across the spectrum for raw materials. Even more impressive for the broad commodity rally, It's occurring amid back-to-back month of gains for the Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index, typically a headwind for raw materials. Metals are also on a tear, giving traders and industry experts gathered for LME Week in London plenty to cheer about. From aluminium to zinc, just about everything is up. Codelco, the biggest copper producer, suggested a run towards the all-time high of $10,000 a ton may be possible. Expectations of surging battery demand are buffering nickel prices, but the real star of 2017, that's palladium. The metal is headed for its highest close since 2001, thanks to its role as a key component in curbing emissions in gasoline-powered vehicles. A testament to firming demand, buoying metal prices, inventories on the London Metal Exchange continue to shrink. WTI crude oil, last 4 times RSI was at 70, we saw an average pullback of 14.04%, top appears to be $55.10, looking for a drop to $47.36, that's Kobasi letter. It's now on the down move finally. This is another chart from Commodity, this is WTI, we're currently trading at $54.45. Oil down despite OPEC whispers. OPEC wants to see the floor for oil at $60 per barrel next year. This is a chart, longer term chart showing you Brent and showing you WTI from Holger. I'm bearish. Gold, where is that? 1276 and a half. Not finding any upward thrust here. Emerging markets, Bahrain Central Bank foreign reserves, including gold, have tumbled about 75% since 2014 to just above 522 million dinars, $1.39 billion in August, which is 1 month's import cover. Bahrain's debt risk measured by 5-year credit default swaps has dropped more than 60 basis points to 241 as of Tuesday, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. Sub-Saharan Africa, 28 killed in rare protests in Eritrea, an opposition group is saying. At least 28 people have been killed in rare protests in the capital of Eritrea, one of the world's most reclusive nations, an official with the largest Eritrean opposition group said on Wednesday. And more than 100 people were injured in the protests in Asmara. Need to keep an eye on that. That too is a hermit kingdom of sorts. IMF says Sub-Saharan Africa to register 3.4% growth in 2018 and 2.6% growth in 2017. Liberia's Supreme Court has halted the presidential runoff over fraud allegations. We're seeing a more activist judiciary across the continent. Fly Rwanda Air, flying peace, tweeted Mwasa. This is the visit of Salva Kiir to Khartoum. Zimbabwe's financial system is living on borrowed time and borrowed money, by Roger Southall of the University of Witwatersrand. Zimbabwe's financial system increasingly resembles a house of cards. Were one card to give way, for instance, if South Africa's utility Eskom were to have the temerity to suggest that Zimbabwe actually pay for the electricity that it's supplying the country, the entire edifice would collapse. To put it another way, the government is bust. It is again printing money to cover its spiraling costs, and inflation is rising, and given that there's an election looming in 2018, Zimbabwe's ruling party ZANU-PF doesn't want to cut back, far from it, wants to carry on spending as fast as it can. July last year, this is a road wreck we've seen coming for eternity. July last year, I said countries like Zimbabwe feel like they are right at the edge that Hunter S. Thompson described thus, the edge. There is no honest way to explain it, because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over. I like this photograph from D. Brown 5. Good morning, Cape Town. Hello, November. Peter Hain's smoking gun provides bank accounts detailing how Guptas took billions from South Africa. This is via biznews.com. Lord Peter Hain drove a very deep nail into the Zupta coffin in the UK's House of Lords on Wednesday in a speech that was televised live. Haynes said he has handed over a smoking gun to the UK Treasury, documents revealing details of money laundered by the Guptas from South Africa through the UK into Hong Kong and Dubai. This evidence, which also contains full details of the beneficiary bank accounts and how the money was sloshed around to disguise its origin. Haynes says the bank staffers were told by executives higher up the chain not to report the transactions, an action which the Lord says makes them criminally complicit. This is a time bomb. South African oil shares up 17.49% year to date at a record high. Dollar versus rand, I'm bearish on the rand because of those kind of revelations. Looking for 1440. Nigerian oil share up 37.26% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index up 39.68% year to date. Vava Vroom, Gang of Marrakesh from Kesh Angels 843 magazine. An African Boy Sit-In from My Rock Stars Volume 2. These are photographs. Artists stand up to perform one by one. You realize you're looking at screens. And then I liked it. Kenya, my title of previous weekend was Finding the Path Back to Political Equilibrium, and I think we have a guillotine. Nairobi oil share up again, it's up 22.96% year to date. Safaricom up 39.53% on a total return basis, just 2.83% below a record closing high, ahead of its earnings release tomorrow morning. Equity Bank surged 7.23% yesterday. Captain Mwangi, in my opinion, turned his Equity Bank oil tanker early and on a dime, and hence the vibrant share price reaction. KenGen is up 53.44% year to date. Kenya Airways has ramped up 16.831% over the last 3 trading sessions. The NSE 20 is up 18%. Year to date. Capital markets, equity markets, bond yields all signaling that the market sees the political situation as having been, as the market sees closure in the political situation.